Do you know how many times a day I hear an atheist say, atheism isn't a belief system. It is just the lack of belief in your unprovable God. Well, we're going to actually dive into this, and I'm going to try my best to show you how atheism is a belief system. And so atheists all the time wanting to be very individual. They're like, I got my beliefs, and that person over there has their beliefs. And atheism is a bunch of unique individuals, but it's not just a belief system. Wrong. Atheism is a belief system, and here's how to explain it. So if you do not believe there is a God controlling the truthfulness and the consistency of the universe, who hasn't pre-planned the way things work, then the only other rational conclusion is that human beings are the highest form of intelligence. We're going to leave AI out of the equation for a moment because humans actually have created AI, and we're not really certain if it's a bunch of hoopla at this point in time. But currently, mankind is the highest form of intelligence in the universe. Now, at some point, maybe aliens supposedly show up. But currently, you believe that you are the greatest thinker, the greatest intelligence, the greatest decider, the greatest judge of your own life and existence. And that is a belief system that has default and actual consequences. Now, all atheists, or a lot of atheists, at least have the metric of being able to consider, hey, there might be other atheists that know more than me. And I think this goes on. I think you guys look around online and try to find atheist mentors to kind of mimic their thoughts, etc. But hang on for a moment. So if you are, for your life, the greatest decision maker, the greatest moral judge, the greatest thinker, for your context, who has all power, then you get to decide what you will accept into your thinking or not. You get to decide what is good rationale or not. You get to decide what is good logic or not. Pay attention here. What you're talking about is the actual person is elevated over logic. You don't believe in an actual logic. Mankind created logic. Mankind decides to use logic and reasoning. And if mankind is the one shaping logic and reasoning, then can't he shape it for himself personally? So what this boils down to is that as a human being, you have emotional drives. And so let's say you were talking with someone, anyone, doesn't matter if they're religious or atheist, if they say something that emotionally you don't like, then whether it is truthful or not, logical or not, coherent or not, you do not have to accept it into your life. And this is a recipe for delusion. It's an actual recipe for delusion. If you can't necessarily be corrected because you don't want to be corrected or you don't feel like being corrected, and you feel like you are correct, then you are creating your own little mindscape, and it might be incredibly delusional. I didn't say you were delusional. This is the possibility. It is heavily possible to build this context for yourself. Now, with this, if God does not exist and mankind is the highest intelligence, etc., then truth may or may not exist. I mean, who knows? And I can't tell you how many atheists I talk to, and they're like, well, it's what is truth, or what's true for you might not be true for me. And are facts really facts? All facts are subject to change. I've got a scientist friend of mine that mentions that, is since all science is subject to change, then what really is truth or facts? Think about this. If there might or might not be true, and facts might or facts might be facts for now, but they're not facts for later, then what is the purpose even to use your mind and to think and try to grasp things? And so atheism begins to, in and of itself, it begins to actually devalue the human mind. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with that, but I want you to start from the beginning of this video and think through this. So it begins to devalue the mind because there may or may not be truth, and it doesn't really matter if I'm arguing with you and you make a strong point or not. If you don't like it, you don't have to accept it because you're your own God and moral judge and thinker for your own context. You don't have to accept this outside information. And what this does is creates a world that is meaningless, and it creates a world that is sad. It creates a world that is full of vanity and repetition and boredom, and we've done this before, and it creates depression. And since the mind is less important, then the passions become more important. And these insatiable passions push us back to the loop that I just mentioned of, oh, I need to go get more sex. I need to go get more alcohol. Maybe I need to go get more education or more success to fill up this empty void. Further, if you think that you are the highest intellectual, in your peer group and around because, you've got the proper skeptical mindset and you've got the proper rationality and you've studied more than everybody else. The atheist is in this really small club of elites where they look out on the world and the rest of the world is just stupid. They're just a bunch of idiots. They believe in these magic myths and fairy tales, and a lot of you guys like mentioning in this in the comments. But that's actually a very bleak and dark scenario that there's only a really small handful group of people that you could ever trust in, which kind of puts things back in a sad state, which kind of devalues what the mind is for, and then it kind of inflates what the passions are for. And then it also begins to more create the superiority complex. If everybody around you is inferior because they just don't have their thoughts together and they haven't peered deep enough and they haven't researched as much as you, then all of a sudden you start getting this superiority complex. And if you are the God over your own thinking and now you've got a superiority complex as well, could you not become more and more blind and self-deluding? What is even worse is that the atheists claim that they are the intellectual bunch. They are the leaders of thought and logic. And if they have approached this scenario where the mind is actually devalued a bit so that the passions can be inflamed in this chase after these things, and you see the context of how you don't have to accept critical feedback. You can choose to reject it on your own reasoning and justification. You can choose not to be logical at any point that you want because in your personal context, you make up your own reality. Then that is a group of people that are ripe for personal delusion, and you want to trust them and glean your facts from this group of self-interested, self-inflated, self-creating types? You see, atheism is a belief system, and it is a very dangerous belief system. And this is why Christians will beg atheists, like, hey, will you think more about this point? Because we don't want you to get caught in a self-deluding cycle.